to lesson 118. This is using zeros as placeholders and dividing decimal numbers by 10, by 100, and by 1,000. So we already have learned to divide decimal numbers by a whole number. Now we are going to be dividing those decimals where we have a remainder, but we're not going to write it as a remainder anymore. We want to be able to divide as much as possible and just write it as a normal decimal number. And we can do that by attaching zeros to the back of the decimal number because it does not change the value of the number. So I will show you example 1 to explain what we are talking about. We have 0 6/10 divided by 5. So I have Norman and the donkey. I don't know if you remember that from the last lesson, but we have Norman and we also have the donkey. Norman goes in the box inside the house. Donkey goes on the outside. That's our dividend and our divisor. So I have 0 6/10 divided by 5. Now 5 goes into 6 one whole time. I subtract 5. Our dividing, as you can see, is exactly the same. My remainder is 1. So if I attach a 0, I'm going to do this in a different color so you can see. If I attach a 0 to the end of 0 6/10, my value doesn't change. I'm still dividing by the same number. Now I actually have something to bring down. I have a 0 to bring down, and I can divide. 5 goes into 10 2 whole times. My decimal point, of course, goes straight up, and I can subtract 10. Now I do not have a remainder. 0 and 12/100 would be my final answer. So 12/100 would be the quotient of 6/10 divided by 5, and the only way I was able to do that was to attach a 0 at the end because the value doesn't change. So I could actually continue to attach as many zeros as possible until I don't have a remainder anymore. Example 2, I'd like you to go ahead and do this one with me. I have 3/10 divided by 4. Again, I'm going to label Norman and the donkey because Norman, my dividend, goes inside the house and the donkey goes on the outside. So I have 3/10 divided by 4. 4 can't even go into 3. So I do need to attach a 0 at the end. 4 can go into 30. I'm going to put my decimal point straight up, and I'm also going to put 4 goes into 3 0 times. I need to have that because I'm going to go ahead and start with 30 already after my decimal point. It goes into 30, let's see, be 7 times minus 28, which is 2. I still have a remainder, so guess what I need to do? I need to attach a 0 again at the end. I'm going to bring down that 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and that is minus 20. I do not have a remainder anymore. So my quotient is 75 thousandths. I have 75 thousandths as my quotient. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 here. So again, I had to actually go ahead and start off by adding a 0, and I can keep adding as many zeros, but again, to not overwhelm you, our dividing process is the exact same thing. I'm just attaching zeros to keep bringing them down until I do not have a remainder anymore. I'd like you to go ahead and try example 3. I had 3 4/10 divided by 10. So I have 3 4/10 divided by 10, and hopefully you've actually seen and realized we have learned how to multiply decimals by 10, by 100, and by 1,000, and we move our decimal point to the right when we multiply. Now we're dividing, so as you can see, if I'm going to show you, I have, let's see, Norman and the donkey. So donkey goes on the outside. Norman goes on the inside. My dividend and divisor. 10 can go into 34. The decimal point goes straight up. It goes in 3 times. Minus 30. And I have 4 left over. So I need to attach a 0 at the end to bring down because my value doesn't change. 10 goes into 40 4 times. So, as you can hopefully see, all I did when I divided was my decimal point actually moved to the left. So it moves to the right when you multiply. I'm going to go ahead and write this down. So decimal moves right. I'm going to just put an R for right for multiplication. And see, I'll need a different color here. Decimal moves left for division. So decimal moves right when we multiply by 10. The decimal point moves left when I divide by 10, by 100, or by 1,000, both for the same thing. So division would make sense because when I move it to the left, my number actually gets smaller. 3 4/10 is larger than 34/100. When I multiply, my number is going to be larger. So if I multiply by 10, my decimal point would be moving right and I would have 34, which would be larger than 3 4/10. So example 4, I want you to go ahead and divide this mentally. This is by 100. If you see, if we divide it by 10, my decimal point moved once. 100, I have 2 zeros. So go ahead and try to do that on your own without actually having to solve it. So if I have 3 5/10, I'm going to move it left because I'm dividing. Decimal moves left for division. And I have 2 zeros, so that means I'm moving it 2 times. 1, 2. My decimal point goes here. I need a 0 right here. My answer would be 35 thousandths. 35 thousandths should be your answer, and that would be our entire lesson. We're dividing by 10, by 100, by 1,000 are decimal numbers, and also using zeros as placeholders whenever we divide. So I want you to go ahead and do the practice set the best you can. We're going to do plenty more of these. As you can see, we have A, B, and then I skipped over, did J and K, and there's also others afterwards. So we're going to get plenty of practice with the dividing decimals. Thank you very much for paying attention.